Imagine, imagine if someone came up with a solution to on ramp and off ramp to all chains. So we're getting information now, more information coming out about Provex. Imagine if someone came up with a solution to on off ramp from all chains. Remove middlemen, replaces trust with math, great tokenomics, figures out a way to get people to use a better chain, gives people something new instead of the same similar stuff over and over again. Imagine it could replace trust with proof in all kinds of industries. You'd have to be dumb to shun such an idea.
What do you think he's talking about? Just prove X, or is there
Yeah,
more?
he's talking about Provex, and he's talking about what he believes that it will do and the benefits of it and how it can bring people to Pulsechain, which he's obviously saying is a better chain.
So one thing I find interesting about it, Mando, is in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's talked about there being a fee when interacting with Provex. If you're on and off ramping, or if you're using it as like some escrow service, because I think there's a few use cases, if I understand correctly, but there is a fee involved for doing so. And if the asset itself that's getting bought and burnt is on Pulsechain, but the product itself is cross chain. So if you're able to on and off ramp or do services on multiple different chains, it kind of creates a funnel effect where it's taking a service from all the chains, but bringing the value of that 1% fee to one specific asset on a specific chain, which does help with the price appreciation of not only that asset, but also for the chain as well and everything on the chain, because the asset is most likely going to be bonded with PLS. And the only way that that product or service could buy and burn that specific asset is by getting into PLS first. So that's, I think what I got out of that is, and correct me if you're wrong, but I don't know if this product will have a lot of volume right off the bat. Uniswap didn't have a lot of volume right off the bat. It took time for adoption and for product market fit to kind of work itself into place. But what we're seeing on a lot of exchanges is, people's funds getting cut off, or they aren't able to access it, or it's very hard to get in and out. You have to KYC. A lot of these things no one wants to really do. But we have to do because it's our only option to get on and off. So if a legitimate solution comes out and it's actually able to be used and easy to work with, and you can actually bring large lump sums of in and out, yes, maybe it starts off with having low volume, but it could actually increase to very, very large volume amounts very quickly. And we can see firsthand that no one minds paying the fees. Anyone who's went onto Coinbase just to bring $10,000 into cryptocurrency, there's a large fee there. And it's just something you have to pay. So we could even have less fees than that in profitable service.
Yeah, that's why I was hoping that, when he said that he would be live streaming that, based on he's never on time. Richard's never on time with anything. So when he said that he was going to be live streaming based on basically putting some information together, that's what I want.
Yeah,
That's
5 days
what I'm waiting
ago.
for.
5 days
Yeah,
ago.
I think that would be phenomenal if he actually did that and then gave us some details that he said he was writing down, information he was writing down, and just kind of preparing, what seemed to be some interesting monologues on probably what Provex is or whatever the hell it is. Who knows? It's not like him to, I don't think, to just say he's going to do that and then not do it. It is like him to, give a time frame and not do the time frame, because that's what he does all the time. So, but yeah, I think it's very interesting. It's interesting right now, the valuation that's coming in on Provex in terms of how much is coming into the sacrifice currently right now. It's
Where's it at right now? I haven't looked
1.9.
for a while.
Yeah,
1.9.
yeah, it's just right at 2 million. So I mean, yeah, that's a nothing burger valuation. I mean, we got dumb meme coins on the chain that are 2 million. So it's obvious that, like, either individuals are waiting for to see what comes in. I think probably you'll end up having some whales come in at the end there. More than likely, there's obviously a few pools that are already being set up, but even with the pools, there's some game theory to this, obviously. But what I'm saying is that Richard is obviously not going anywhere. Richard's not like rug pull. Richard's not, he is building. He's in the game. He's actually trying to do things even though he's in a really shitty situation with just so many different things that have hit since we launched Pulsechain. It doesn't matter, from the SEC to just, the exchanges, to not being ranked properly on aggregated data websites, to the market doing weird stuff this time around, the ETH not performing. I mean, it's just been headwind after headwind after headwind, right? But Richard's still in the game. He's still trying to be innovative in terms of, like, this is directly correlated to, in my opinion, it's directly correlated to on ramping and off ramping, which has been a problem, and it's correlated to, like you said, if it's multi chain, then that does give the ability for other people to come over from other chains in a different format than we're used to, right? So from the vantage point of, like, Richard going anywhere, I don't see that. I see Richard's constant. There's still a massive marketing campaign going on. You have a sacrifice happening. It's the sacrifice and the marketing are happening in a very shitty time in the cycle. Whether the bear market is in, or, like you said, whether we're gonna hit an SMA and then retrace and just keep on going. Either way is 100% possible in this current environment. We are not guaranteed a bear market, and we're not guaranteed a bull market. Nobody has a freaking clue. I'm listening to all the biggest people in the space. I'm literally spending two hours a day, 3 hours a day, listening to the biggest hedge funds, the biggest guys. Nobody knows, right? You've got the TA guys that are calling, standard cycle retracements, and they're always caveating it with, I could be wrong and all this. But specific to Pulse Chain and specific to the sacrifice, it's a very interesting thing that's going on right now with Richard. Nobody can say that it's not. It's got people talking again. It's got people opening up their own spaces again. It's got whales and larger players coming back together again, discussing potentially entering pools. Whether or not the thing is successful in the short term, I'm completely agnostic. In fact, you guys know my view. It's probably not. But at a $2 million input thus far, I mean, to me, that's a low. That's a low. That's real low. So we're gonna have to watch and see where this comes in at. But this, his outbound messaging is legit. If he comes back and does a live stream like he said, that's bullish. That's the That's one of the most bullish messages that we just kind of grazed over and forgot about, because he didn't actually do it within 48 hours, which doesn't matter. But if he actually does, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. Like, if this gets him live streaming again, how is this not worth it? Live streaming is not what we need, but would be obviously a massive catalyst to the success of this chain, with or without the product of PulseX or ProveX. Sorry, ProveX.
Yeah, and you got to ask yourself, like, where would you put the valuation at?
Of ProveX. Literally, I think it's more bullish the less money that's in it. I don't know if that's how you think. The less people that sacrifice for it makes me want to sacrifice for it more.
Well, no, I get that, but it's an indicator of, like, the value, not, the whoever sets the ratio initially sets the market cap and then immediately can inject whatever amount of weight liquidity, right? So the market cap, everything is going to be determined by that first ratio setup. But I'm specifically focused on just looking at it. We're, I don't know how many days in. And I mean, Richard raised like $1 billion in each of the previous sacrifices, and this is like at a $2 million, man.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If the valuation's low, that means there's very little amount of money in it. That means you haven't tapped everyone out in that product yet. That's one of the problems with sacrifices is pretty much everyone's investing their money into the product before the product's even out. So once the product's out, there's no more money to even be put in it unless you're bringing in new people that haven't heard about it yet. But we know that there's a large amount of people on Pulsechain that are hearing about this. They're just not putting their money in beforehand. They want to see the product hit the market, and then maybe they'll speculate, right? But
Not necessarily with the sacrifice. Not necessarily. I mean, in my opinion, there's a lot of people right now that may enter. As a matter of fact, I'm guaranteeing that there's a lot of people that are. There's going to be a lot more money that enters.
well, that's what I believe that too. I
Yeah.
think in the last few days of the sacrifice, there will be a very large amount of money that flows in from the community. Previously, the large money that went into the other sacrifices, I believe, was like Richard, or believed to be Richard. But there's a lot more information on the other sacrifices, so I don't think people really minded just going in at the beginning. They didn't need more information, but I feel like a lot of people right now are waiting for more information. All I was getting at is the smaller the number, the more bullish I am.
And so that's a key, just for everybody to think about. Um, that's why I believe he said he was going to do a live stream and he was putting a bunch of notes together because that's what he did the last time. And if you're going to be in the middle of a sacrifice and you want to raise as much money as you can, why in the hell wouldn't you live stream when that's the exact thing that generated billions of dollars in capital the last time? So I believe that this will be the catalyst that brings him back.
Yeah, that question, I've been asking myself that same question for a long time. If you're asking how can I help my blockchain succeed, and you know the exact recipe that helped your first asset succeed, wouldn't you start with trying out that exact same recipe, and then if it doesn't work from there, start modifying it? But he's not even doing the exact same recipe this cycle as he did last cycle. So then I almost started to ask myself, did he not care for the price of Pulsechain to do super until he wants it to? Or was there other things stopping him that possibly still could be stopping him? Obviously, he said that I might live stream, so those things maybe aren't stopping him anymore. Obviously, we don't know the fine details. I completely agree with you. If you wanted to raise money and you know live stream is going to probably increase the amount of money you raise by a drastic amount, you would most likely live stream. How does it differ from even his own assets? Him live streaming would probably increase his own assets price, and he's obviously a large holder of his own products. So by live streaming, not even before Provex, he would have increased his own wealth by doing so.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting situation right now.
Nudge that he needs, I think it's super worth it. You know what I mean? If you ask yourself, new product, new token, new sacrifice, and he comes back streaming, all these, even if don't sacrifice, and that's kind of where I was getting at, even if you don't sacrifice, you can still benefit from the product. You could benefit from the product because he comes streaming again, and obviously most likely says positive things about Pulsechain, Pulsex, and Hex, and reassures people of, the product doing what it should be doing, and, we're figuring out how to win in this crypto landscape. I think that's a lot of what people just need to hear is, hey, we're knocking down, or if we keep knocking on down ideas, if you keep working towards the goal, eventually you usually reach that goal. Usually doesn't happen as quickly and easily as people think. By him just saying that out loud to people with a genuine feel, I think that helps the community out more than most people even realize. Also, where I was talking about, if it's a product that's cross-chain and it's bringing value into Pulsechain because multiple blockchains want to use this service, it's doing $5 million a day in volume, which really isn't that much if it's going across multiple chains and, people are using it for on and off ramping. I'm sure we could get it to those points, and it's only getting 1%. Well, that's $50,000 a day. $50,000 a day of buy pressure on Pulsechain in this asset. I think like 18 a year or something like that. Like, I'm sure everyone would love $18 million a year injected into Pulsechain.
Yeah, I mean, I've been tweeting pretty much about it, pretty clearly. If you go back into my posts, maybe the last, I'd say 3 or 4 or 5 posts that are related to the sacrifice and Pulsechain, I essentially told people to sell, to take profits and everything that they had that were shit coins and get ready prior to the sacrifice, because You know, the way that the sacrifice is set up, it's designed to make the price of the chain go down. So let me read something real quick. Some people aren't reading some of the posts, but let me read this one. It says, I truly believe it's playing out exactly as I said it would because I've seen it in the past. Why are the cores in most altcoins going down right now on Pulsechain since the sacrifice started? Because that's exactly what the sacrifice is literally designed to do. The only way for the community to participate in the Provex process, they must, one, sell cores into accepted assets, two, sell alts into accepted assets. Both of these dump the chain. And people keep asking me why the chain is red. Really? If you're selling your cores and quality alts right now, you are being played like a fiddle. It's a Richard Hart symphony designed to strip as much value as possible from the community and remove all sell pressure from the ecosystem. It's a test to see who really is here long term. It's his version of Game of Thrones. People understand this. Understand this. If Pulsechain doesn't move up in price, nobody is going to give a damn about Provex. Personally, I think Provex will be a great tool for Pulsechain, but it won't mean a thing without the success of the cores, which means the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is Pulsechain. And Richard knows this, full stop. If you are being scared out of your cores or top tier alts right now, you are falling into the trap the sacrifice was strategically designed to set. Lastly, there are already whale pools for this Provex sacrifice. And unless you are in them, your price per token will be much higher than theirs. Bottom line, don't sell your cores, don't sell your conviction plays. This is all a test. And if you are selling in quotes because the chain is going down, well, now you know why. The sacrifice is designed to make everything come down. So between now and the first day of the bonding curve rate change, relax, enjoy the show, but don't be the dumb getting played. Disclaimer, and I say that here live, nothing I share is financial advice. These are my personal thoughts. So that's what I believe. I tweeted before the sacrifice started. I had conversations with Zen privately, and I told him exactly what I thought. It did exactly what I thought it would do. And how could it not? When he chose to put a sacrifice out that didn't accept any of his core assets, well, what does that mean? That means that anybody who wants to participate in the sacrifice for Provex must, if they weren't already in stable coins, which most were not, you know, most were not, in my opinion. Most were not ready to sell at this point, but some are, some do. But for the most part, when he released that none of the cores were going to be accepted, well, what does that force everybody on chain to do? It forces them to sell the cores into those accepted assets. That drops the chain. If they have value in altcoins, it forces them to sell the altcoins into Pulsechain and then into those assets that are accepted assets as well. So it's common sense why the chain is dumping. But then at the same exact time, you have Bitcoin dumping. So you have a double whammy of the general legacy market dumping as well as a sacrifice going on, which is forcibly forcing the entire chain down because of the draw from liquidity. The assets are being sold off into off-chain assets, right? And then sent to a sacrifice address. So that's why when you're looking at what's going on and you're selling your assets right now, if you're getting scared, I'm not telling you what to do, but just know why the assets in terms of the cores, know why it's coming down. Swap it into accepted assets that are not associated with Pulse Chain at all. That's dropping the prices of everything on chain. And then we're also bonded in liquidity to Bitcoin and Ethereum, which has been taking a dump over the last week. That's why the chain's down. Okay. We're still over all time lows. You know, it's still sitting here, right? But that's why this is all very interesting. The timing of it and the design of it, it truly is a Game of Thrones reality. He wants to get as much value into his hands that were not cores And by doing that, it does a number of different things. And I don't want to get into all that right now, but you go through and read the last few different posts. But that's why the chain is dumping. And if it's scaring you out of your position and you don't understand that, you might be making a bad choice.
Yep. We are down 33% since last Tuesday evening. And the $2 million that is in the sacrifice, if it came back into Pulse right now, it would 2x the price.
Yeah, the amount of capital to bring it back up to that is literally nothing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Can pump so easily, but with just a little bit of sell pressure on the chain, it can also dump very quickly too.
If Richard tweets, I'm going live in 2 hours, and it actually happens, you're going to go way up.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're out and you weren't there to buy before that happened, that train just left the station.
Yeah. That's
That's a
risky.
fact.
Uh-huh.
So that's why watching out for any tweet about a live stream right now is like it's massive for anybody who's who's been here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean I saw the design and it's like, okay, I mean the only thing that can happen is the chain gets sold down for a second. You can't have, and here's why. I'm assuming that the large majority of individuals partaking in the sacrifice for Provex are not coming from other places. Some are, but my assumption is it's the current community, right? And if the current community can't just send Pulse or Hex or Pulsex or Ink or eHex to a wallet address like we were able to do in the first sacrifices, then that means that the chain has to get temporarily sold down. Richard obviously does not care that the chain gets temporarily sold down. He obviously could care less about that.
I was thinking about that on my way in. He doesn't care about the temporary, but I hope and I think that he probably still cares about the future.
Well, of course, everything he's doing is to build the chain. Everything that the guy
Mm.
is doing right now. Richard does two things right now. I guarantee you. He does women and pulse chain. That's what he does.
Mm.
He enjoys his life and he obsesses over pulse chain. But
Actually,
this is
surprise
important.
pulses.
This is important, Zen. This is what I mean. Like what everybody is thinking. Oh, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. Richard doesn't care about you feeling if the sky is falling or not. He's
Yeah.
building. He's
Yep.
building. He's doing sacrifices. He's creating. He's doing what he always does, and he's not caring about your feelings on that he didn't make you, a gazillionaire in 24 months.
Yes. Yep.
I'm actually surprised price isn't even lower. I definitely know of a few people who have stabled up in the recent days, and I don't talk to too many people. So, and we all know how little amount of liquidity here is on chain. So I actually found that pretty interesting too. Because even if they're selling out of like alts on the chain, maybe they're not selling their RH tickers, like it all has to go through Pulse Chain. The thing is, there is people taking advantage of these discounts because I have heard of people selling out of Pulse Chain or even some alts to get stables. Not even so much to sacrifice, just like you said, Mando, seeing the design of the sacrifice made them move some into stables. Just seeing that design, not even the fact that they wanted to sacrifice.
Yeah, because if you know anything about how liquidity pools work and what that design by default would do, you knew that the chain was going to go down. That's why I texted it. I tweeted it out, 36 hours in advance, and I literally told everybody, guys, if you're sitting on shit coins, man, get it out of there and take your profits right now.
Mm-hmm.
I had so many people hit me up thanking me for that tweet. You have no idea. I mean, that's made a lot of people a lot of money. That gave them a lot of firing power. When you stable up and the chain goes down 33% on the mean in like less than a week, man.
Bounce up 30% in one tweet by Richard.
Oh yeah, totally.
100%. And let me tell you, if that tweet hits, the second I see that YouTube video go live, bro, it's all deployed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think same as just like you. There's a bunch of other people with that strategy too, and that's what sparks that 30%
Yeah.
move up.
True.
Going back to the
Yeah, I love it, man. Sorry. I know that some I don't you know, I'm not happy for the people that are upset right now, but I look at it as it's going to send us so much into such a better space when we do have our bull run on Pulse Chain.
The largest sacrifice currently in first place is 321 grand. Second, basically 51 grand. And that's a 2.83 multiplier. The number 10 position is at a 20 grand sacrifice with a 2.39% multiplier. And the bonding curve begins 12-2. So we're on day 7 currently. Yeah. So I mean, we've got just a little bit of time left here, couple weeks, 3 weeks or so, and then that bonding curve is going to start ratcheting up. So what I expect to see is just prior to that day or on that day, you're going to see the largest players enter the sacrifice between now and that day, but more than likely within probably on that day, because what that does is, I mean, and I mean like literally, like even within the hour of the bonding curve closing or shifting.
Yeah, they don't even want people to know that they're going to be coming in, because then other people have time to beat them out. If you don't give them time, your likelihood of being in that top spot or top spots, if you don't care about maybe being number one, but you're trying to get into the top 10, which it sounds like the amplification is pretty good, you'd want to be strategic with that.
I think, man, the main thing is that there's a lot of negative sentiment, dude, out there, but the man's doing what the man's doing, and you can't control the markets. You can't control Bitcoin actually doing something different and changing up the cycle, which it did. You can't control SEC. You can't control being gate kept on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko and every damn website. You can't control ETH not performing. You can only play with the hands you're dealt. You know. There has been capital injection. There's been multiples of capital injections on Pulse Chain where people could have taken shit tons of profits. There's been multiple times where it was above sacrifice price if you absolutely wanted to get out. So the expectations things for me, like, it's hindsight 2020, but you cannot say that either if you wanted out you couldn't have gotten out. You could have multiple times. You cannot say that it's the stuff's not been delivered. You cannot say Richard's just disappeared. You can't say he hasn't been spending tons of money to maintain the chain, upgrade the chain, beat the SEC like $25 million or something. Constant devs, new stuff launching. So I guess it's like the only thing that I think really people can honestly complain to Richard about is, and it's just a complaint. It's not a requirement. It's just that, hey, we want to see you live stream. We would love to see you actually come back and be who you were as a founder, which that's because we all love Richard. We just miss the freaking guy. We miss his charismania. And we know that brings eyeballs and that brings users and that educates people, and that education is what brings people to the chain. But I mean,
Yeah, it's
outside
probably
of that,
it's one of the biggest onboarding tools for sure.
yeah, yeah. But this whole like hate fest, I think for me personally, and then I'll be quiet. The other thing is just the posture. There could just be more professionalism on the posture side, and just kind of certain things, the way certain things are done or framed or whatever. But let's be real, guys. That was always Richard. That's kind of what you signed up with. You knew who he was before you sent in the money, right? When he's cussing everybody out and telling everybody they're crap, and he's on with 4 attorneys going head to head with 4 people. It doesn't matter who he's talking. So it is what it is. But the thing that I think is important is he's here. He's working. There's things happening, and the chain's not at all-time lows. It is what it is.
Yeah,
Josh on YouTube asked, go ahead, Zed, go
it's
ahead,
pretty much
please.
at all-time lows, but there is still positive things about Pulse Chain being at these low levels. If we have a recovery, right? I believe we're going to have a recovery. So I look at these low levels as a great place to DCA, a great place to onboard if you were to ever onboard someone. And then also, the buy and burns. We have to remember PTGC is a deflationary asset, UFO is a deflationary asset, PulseX is a deflationary asset. I've been seeing how much PulseX has been getting bought and burnt the last week. I've been shocked. Billions of PulseX every single day.
Wow.
Almost hundreds of millions of PTGC on days like today. I think a couple days ago we did another one of decent size as well. So as far as scarcity goes, this dip is just making these assets that have had lack of demand just due to lack of exposure very, very scarce.
And I've already said this, but I'll say it again. If you wanted to get whales out of the system and they have a ton of your coins, right? Um, but you don't accept their coins, it's a really, really good way to say, hey, you can sacrifice for this other thing, but you got to sell your coins and send me ETH instead. That's why I think that between now and the bonding curve day, you better be ready for a dip potential. Because anybody who's a whale on Pulse Chain that has not yet sacrificed, but they intend on sacrificing cores, still have to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they are not sitting on stables and have yet to move anything into stables, that's the only way they can. Unless they want to bridge in more fresh capital, and that's what Richard wants anyways. So
Well, that's correct. I just you know that there's always a percentage that will do what they can do. Okay, if there's a variable, there's always a part that will be part of that variable, right? So between now and the best rate ending, I mean, would you not? I would bet that there are people waiting to see how much goes in. And the entire design of the sacrifice is to say, give me all the cores, but give them to me in the form of Ethereum, in the form of USDT, in the form of, and what does that do? That pushes the chain down. They have to give the coins back at these prices and push the chain down, right? They lock in their Provex sacrifice, and what does that do? That leaves the chain at a level that now can be bought up cheaper. And all of those coins are now out of the hands of those individuals. If you allowed the cores to be just sent from one wallet to another, you don't get. This is where those early tweets where Richard was saying, "How do I get?" If I've got $10 million of a thing and he wants to buy a lot of it, how do I get value into, right? So I think this is a 100% strategic game plan, Game of Thrones, Pulse Chain Game of Thrones right now happening. Yeah, and that's why I said, man, in my first tweet that I put out, not financial advice, man, but don't get scared out of your freaking conviction plays through this. Know what's happening. I mean, if you think the bull run's over and you think you don't want to hold, well, that's a different story. But if we're just talking about specific to Pulse Chain and what's going on, like, think about what's happening, guys. I mean, when you have a system specifically designed to force whales to sell down the chain, to relinquish their coins to participate if they don't have stables or things that they want to relinquish on other chains, there's always going to be a percentage of those larger entities that once they see what the pot is looking like, because this is how the whales always act. This is how they always work. They want to know what the numbers are. You want to know why? Because of ego.
Yep.
It's called ego. Ego. They want to be at the top of the list. They want to be the number one, the number five, the number 10. And they don't know what those numbers look like until literally hours before the bonding curve ends and the rate starts to increase. You saw it in the Pulse and Pulsex sacrifices right there at the end too. When massive amounts of hex was sacrificed. So it's going to be interesting, guys. Never a dull moment.
it's not only a test of the Richard Hart tokens, I think it's also a test for all the alt tokens as well, to test how strong those communities are also. Because you were going to pump your entire chain, and there's all these alt communities on the chain that you know you're going to pump because Richard definitely understands how bonded liquidity works, and any token that is bonded with his assets. And if you were going to create a season on your chain, wouldn't you want to not only test your community, but you then are also testing every single alt community on that chain as well to see how strong they are?
100%. This is the other part of this is nobody knows reflexivity and bonded liquidity and all this stuff like a very small group of people. Richard obviously is one of those individuals. So he knows that when Pulsechain does a 10x, any protocol that had a community that knew what the hell they were doing and didn't sell, that they're going to get that 10x in the pools, less any sell pressure. So if you're somebody that knows that in the near future or at some point in the future, it's go time, and you're the type of person that has the mindset that you love to shake out the weak hands, the losers who don't believe, and it's literally your Game of Thrones game plan to do anything you possibly can, literally in your power, to shake every freaking last son of a bitch off your chain that doesn't believe in you, because Richard hates pumping your bag if you don't believe in him. He just won't do it. That's just his mindset. He doesn't care how long you have to wait. He talks about it in his tweets all the time, right? So when you set up a sacrifice like this, not only does it drain the cores, but if people have been on Pulsechain and all they have left is gains in an altcoin, and they want to participate, they sell out of their altcoin to go into a freaking sacrifice. Well, all of that, what that does is that just it removes the X multiplier from that altcoin when it goes up. So it's a strategic way to get whales and the cores out. It's a strategic way to minimize the impact of the X multiplier in all of the alt ecosystems on the chain at the same time. So if people don't see what's happening, like, it's this big setup, it's this big liquidity suck that's designed to.
Yeah, well, think of it about it. Every alt token on top of Pulsechain is fractionalized, some way more fractionalized than others.